Welcome back to Plague Scythe Studios, everyone. Ryan here today with another topic for heavy reflection that's probably going to be a bit divisive. And the whole message and mantra of this video somewhat flies in the face of me even making this to begin with, which is kind of ironic. But with all these editorial type videos I do like this, really the ultimate goal is to convey a personal sense of why I run this channel the way I do, or I make content the way I do. You see things or you don't see other things that you maybe would with other content creators, that sort of thing. And with that, we'll be covering a topic I'll call separating the art from the artist, and as well as a few side effects of that, like turning individuals into brands and turning brands into individuals and all these things that I find to be interesting and can really stir up a community if left unchecked or done in the wrong way. When I say separating the art from the artist, I'm not trying to be your AP literature teacher from high school and say every piece of art transcends the artist that made it. No, that's not what I'm getting at. I'm not saying like, well, the author said the wall is this particular shade of white, therefore he's trying to describe the social climate, whatever. No, if the artist says I meant this by that, that's what it means. Okay, that's end of that discussion. What I mean by separating the art from the artist is kind of looking at the individual and their product as separate entities and not driving them together as one. And there's a responsibility both on the artist and the consumer, in my opinion. And I'll make a case for that, of course. So I'll start off with a little party trick here. Take a look at this picture. Any thoughts, feelings? Maybe you think it's bland. Maybe you think, oh, that would go great in my grandmother's bathroom. Or maybe just like, I could pass, but not necessarily the worst thing in the world, not necessarily the best thing in the world. What if I told you that painting was made by Adolf Hitler? You probably have a few different feelings about that now than when you first looked at it. And this is exactly why I think separating the art from the artist is so important. If we're going to talk about the art piece, I don't think it's fair, and you may disagree with this, but I don't think it's fair to bring up the fact that the guy who painted it would, decade later be the scourge of most of Europe and the principal antagonist in World War II and all the atrocities that him and his Third Reich committed. But if we're going to talk about the art piece, we need to talk about the art piece. And a lot of the times that doesn't happen. A lot of the times it's the artist's fault. I think that's a pretty fair thing to say, that in this case, it's probably the artist's fault that that whole thing called World War II that he instigated is going to affect the art that he left on the world. Kind of, I think most people can agree on that one. But let's take the example of Phil Anselmo from Down and Pantera. He said some stuff on stage in interviews that, regardless of whether you feel was taken out of context or overblown, or whether he just didn't get enough backlash from it, it doesn't really matter. The fact of the matter is, the words that came out of his mouth resulted in some damages, however you want to look at it, financially or just overall socially. So I think this is where the consumer and the artist working together could have prevented a lot of this crap. First things first, let's put a little bit of responsibility on the artist. A lot of responsibility, in fact. And I'll kind of use myself as an example throughout this as well. You have to understand, if you're an actor or if you're especially a musician, and I would say musician even more importantly, this is kind of a personal art form. We put a lot of our, personal feelings, our expression, we tie a lot of ourselves to our art. So you have to realize that when people are hearing your songs or listening to your lyrics, they feel something, they feel that personal connection. If you grew up listening to someone's music which you found so powerful and inspiring, and you felt this personal connection, it's really no wonder that they say something that you strongly disagree with. There's going to be a bit of kind of a personal schism there, right or wrong. That's kind of the name of the game. And you either have to understand that's the game you're playing and accept the consequences of throwing it the finger, or you kind of have to bend your behavior around that. I think one thing that really helps not falling into that trap as much is not putting yourself out there as personally. And that kind of goes back to the whole brands as individuals or individuals as brands. And it's something I try to not do at all. You guys don't even know my last name. That's not by accident at all. There may be a time in a few years or so, maybe I will talk about it. Maybe I'll get back into gigging more. As of right now, though, for the focus of this channel, This is a brand, and I don't even like to call it that. This is really an extension, a portion of my personality that's been personified or objectified really in this whole YouTube project. And again, because you don't have a lot of personal details about myself, I'm making this product. And all the things that are criticism of said product are a lot, less attached to me than if someone like a singer-songwriter were to say something or do, anything of that sort, where they have their personal name and more of their personal feelings attached to it. And again, that was a very conscious decision by me to make this stand alone. Guys like Ola England and Rob Scallon do a very commendable job, in my opinion, of keeping themselves distanced from this brand they've built, even though the brand is themselves, which is something I don't think I can handle. It's the whole reason I didn't go with my full name and made a brand name. Ola in particular, he talks about video games. He'll give some personal clips here and there on his FAQ videos. He'll talk about growing up playing guitar, what he learned, and all that stuff, but really no decisive stuff. He's very careful about what he does say, and his whole mantra is, his project, his music brings people together, gives people common ground, and gives us something to bond over and really get along better. So what good does it do him to bring up stuff that's just going to destroy all that hard work? And I 100% agree with that. And I think looking at it from the logical angle is you take away all the emotions, you strip away all the stuff, how people feel about politics, religion, or sociology, whatever, and it really comes down to, at the artist's responsibility, delivering the content, delivering the message, delivering whatever that people came for. If you build your brand, let's say, let's use a really easy example, Cartoon Network. If you build a brand off of showing daytime kiddie cartoons and nighttime adult cartoons, you think you're going to piss people off if it randomly at 8 o'clock in the morning you show the morning news to a bunch of school children? Probably, right? They came there to watch Teen Titans or whatever garbage is on now. I don't even know. But it's all about delivering what you have set your expectations to be. I've set this channel to be tech, guitar tech, playthroughs, demos, all that kind of stuff. If I give my synopsis of world religion and my thoughts on that tomorrow, most of you probably, it may offend some of you. A lot of you are just going to be like, what the hell? This is not at all what I've signed up for, type of thing. So I think that's really the core of it. Whatever that you set out to do, keep doing it. Focus on it. There's several YouTubers, content creators I love. I'll throw one of my personal favorites out of it. Big, inspiration for this channel is Gamers Nexus. And that's one reason I love them so much as quality content, because they're very technical. They do a lot of stuff in the videography space that I try to emulate, but it's all just the content. There's no personal bullshit. If it is brought up, it's because it's needed in context, and that's kind of what I try to do, especially in these videos. A different example, Jim Sterling, one of my favorite video game content creators, but one of the things I hate that he does the most, and it's part of his character, so I kind of get that. Jim Sterling is not his real name, but I go there to watch video game content. I go there to keep up with the bullshit of the industry. So when he starts bringing up politics, and most of the time it's a quip here or there, which is like, haha, funny. Even if I don't agree with it, or even if I agree with it or disagree with it, most time it's you can see the humor in it. But there will be parts where it's not what I'm there for, and you can see that reflected in the likes and dislikes. So that's why I try to avoid that as someone who creates content. So I guess my suggestion to anyone that makes any form of art, realize that whether you signed up for it or not, there is a burden on your shoulders to keep yourself separated from your art. If you don't mind having all those consequences, if you are the anarchy punk guy and that's deeply your core and that's all you write that kind of music and that is your person and they're all focused and it's all the same thing, and attacking your music is attacking you, or loving you is loving your music, that's cool if that's what you can handle. Not me. And most people can't, I don't think. So just be aware that you have to frame it that way. You have to build your content. You have to build your delivery in a way that it is separated, and that if it's not, realize that, there's going to be some consequences because of it. With that said, that doesn't mean I necessarily agree with all those consequences happening. As a consumer, I think it is my responsibility and the responsibility of all consumers to objectively look at art as best as possible. Not necessarily saying, oh, we have to objectively look at how well this movie was shot or whatever. No, if you like something, cool. But being able to say, this artist was involved or this actor was involved and I don't like them personally, but I like their work. Again, going back to the responsibility of an artist, you have to realize not all people can operate under that mind frame. Me, I'm pretty much okay with it. I wouldn't place myself among the biggest House of Cards fans, but I would personally have no problem going back and watching the first few seasons of that show, even knowing Kevin Spacey's recent allegations, because in my mind, there are so many more people involved in that, and it is a person representing a character. It's not him in the show. A lot of people can't make that distinction and don't want to. I understand that. Again, that is part of the artist's responsibility to realize that is a fact. But for me, I think it's stupid to criticize a show for having someone on it that committed some things and, you know, objectively taking away points from the show, which not everyone does, but I've seen review scores and that kind of stuff, not necessarily just that show alone, but other venues where things get objectively taken points away, whether it be a game developer or something that was involved in some scandal that, you know, had nothing to do with the objective design or the enjoyment of the product. And to me, that's where we got to draw the line. That's where we as consumers have to say, no, this is where your involvement ends and this is where the product begins. Going back to Down and Pantera, I think a lot of people see Phil Anselmo's actions as delegitimizing, that's a word, right? His message or overall feel of his older songs that they love so much. And again, I think that's the artist's responsibility to understand that is a possible outcome, so plan accordingly. But I also feel it's just people aren't willing to ascribe works of art to damaged people. You know, I think some of the best stuff, I think anyone would tell you, some of the best art in any category comes from people who are legitimately flawed, and some of which heavily flawed. And you have to accept that. If you like the art, you have to accept that, oh, maybe this is a screwed up person that made this. Look at Strapping Young Lad. Devin Townsend was kind of off his rocker a lot of the times on that. Not even, you know, doing terribly heavy drugs, but not in a really good state mentally either. And he would tell you that, and would, you know, continues to tell you that today. And he's kind of a manic depressive still, but some of the best heavy metal ever created, in my opinion. And even he would tell you, yeah, I was kind of a scumbag of a human being in both my thoughts and my actions. So to me, that's the name of the game. Many people, adults included, just have a real hard time accepting the fact that their heroes or their favorite wordsmiths or their favorite musicians, whatever, are just kind of fucked up and are not people that you should idolize. You shouldn't idolize any human being, in my opinion. I get having, you know, I have my big influences in people who I look up to because of their artwork. I don't look up to them as individuals. That's the difference. And I think that's something that we as people are folly to, because we look at other people. We see everything personified in the person that creates it. It's a real hard thing to get over. And I don't know that we're necessarily supposed to get over that. It's a very human thing. But as someone, once again, going back to why I run this channel the way I do, it's something I gotta, you know, I have to train myself to look the other way. If I'm looking at a product, say someone like Vinny from VPix, lovely guy, sent me all kinds of free pics. I've tried basically almost every one of his models he's made. To be perfectly honest, there's plenty of pics in his selection that work great for my application, but a vast majority of them are absolute hot garbage for the stuff that I play. It's not a reflection of the quality of his product, and it's certainly not a reflection of him as a person, more importantly. And that's something you can't just, you know, make a distinction between as a reviewer. You're not going to last very long. And I think that's something that a product manufacturer, or at least one that wants to improve their stuff, should value, is being able to separate their intentions and themselves as a person, especially for a small company, and the product they created. I think it's the only way you're going to make any progress, especially in consumer goods, but also as art in general. So I think what I'm getting at in this video can really be summed up in a few bullet points. First off, we don't live in an ideal world, but if you try to act like we do, I think it makes things easier. Attack the product, not the person, if there's something about, you know, an art piece you don't like. But realize, conversely, number two, that if you are the artist, the harder you make it for someone to separate your product from yourself, the more that you're going to garner direct criticism, the more that you're going to run into those consequences we talked about earlier. And especially if you build yourself or the brand of yourself around unity and you do all these things that are divisive, yeah, you're going to have some problems. That leads me to number 3, focus is key. And this is a topic I could probably make a whole different video on. But the point is, it's kind of hard to be a Renaissance man and keep everyone happy. It's okay to have different ventures, to have different artistic expressions, but if you're going to do that, you have to realize maybe people in this camp may not like all that. People in this camp may like that more, and they might not get along with these people. So that's just a concession you have to make. And again, a game you have to realize that you are playing. If you do it smartly, it could be no big deal. But if you are the head of an international company, and then you start, posting stuff about the 2020 election, and you're, really heavily slanted towards one side, and you're posting, whatever on social media, yeah, you're probably going to piss off some of your constituents. It's not that, it's not a hard math equation. So just be smart about it. That's really what it boils down to. To wrap up this video, I hope what you got out of this was twofold. One, I hope maybe you got a little bit of a different perspective on this than you had previously. But number 2, more importantly for this channel as a whole, I hope you see why I abstain from making some things or posting some things or covering certain topics, and why I focus on others. And that's because I made this channel to promote, talk about something I'm very passionate about, something I feel I can pass on a little bit of knowledge to people, and it's not my place in this venture to do anything but that. And if I do anything but that, it's going to be in a different place and under different branding or different whatever. That way, it's easier for you as a consumer to separate. I like this part of what this guy does. I don't particularly care for that thing. I want to follow this thing. And that's just, it helps everyone, in my opinion. And why, again, I don't use my personal name. If and when that time comes, when, more grounded personal projects of mine are released, and I'm working on a couple of them, then, that'll be out there and you can see that side. But you know what? If you don't like my personal music, that's fine. I still have all this content here that I think is still of value to someone who may not care for the other art I make. And, that's why I express everything I did in this video, as far as your responsibility as a consumer and mine as an artist, mine as a consumer, all the other artists as artists. So that's pretty much that. So we'll call that a video. Thanks for watching. Tell me your thoughts in the comments below. We'll see you in a few more weeks with another heavy reflection. Stick around for more valuable content than me spewing a bunch of bullshit like I do in this series. We'll see you next time. Bye.